I'd like to start off with thanking the people who have made this event possible, people who have made the whole program possible, Dr. Bar and Rabbi Myers and the whole community. Besides this being a tremendous schus, an ability for people to be able to learn from my grandfather's Zechrenu L'Vrucha, it's also a tremendous schus for his neshama, and may he be a source of light and inspiration, health and wealth and kol tov for these people, their families, and all of Klal Yisrael. When there are people out there looking for a source to learn from, so they have a sheet with a bunch of qualifications. They're looking for people who are knowledgeable. They're looking for people who have the skills to be able to give over what they know. And some of them are looking for talented people. But after all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, there's a Chazal. And the Chazal tell us that the Marav Doim Ben Malach Hashem Tzavukah is if your teacher is comparable to an angel, only then Torah Yivak Shem Epiyah. If he's not comparable to an angel, just walk away. And besides for that being a tall order, it's a bit puzzling that Chazal gave us such a point of comparison, something that you cannot identify with. I never met anybody who met an angel, and here you have this guy who finds this rabbi, and he looks at him and he says, is this guy comparable to an angel or not? How can you draw that comparison? It's a bit difficult to understand. What did Chazal want of us over here? This question triggered many beautiful answers. I'd like to share with you a profound answer, one that's going to shed a beautiful light on our evening tonight and on the Learning Center in general. Everybody knows the story that took place with Manoach and his wife. We read that in Shoftim in the book of Judges, and it's read in the Haftarah in Parshas Nusay. I'm just going to give you a quick abridged edition because I promised my uncle Michel that I'm going to stay short. The idea basically was that Manoach and his wife were childless for many years, and one day she's sitting at home, and this angelic-looking figure appears to her and says, you will bear a child, and the child will be a Nazarite, a Nuzir, the rest of his life, and he gives her a list of rules and regulations to abide by. She's so excited and overcome with excitement, she runs out into the field and she shares the great news with her husband, who in turn davens to Hashem. He too wants to hear this news firsthand. So the next day, this angelic-looking figure appears again and gives the guy the same news, gives Manoach the same news. And Manoach, so overcome with excitement, says, can I please invite you for dinner tonight? And this figure politely declines. However, he advises Manoach that he should offer a sacrifice to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the great news that was just shared with him, which Manoach promptly did. And as he lit the fire, and the Pusuk says, Vayehi ba'alei salav, as the flame goes up, this angelic-looking figure jumps into the flames and he disappears. He's gone with the flames. And Manoach and his wife are standing there and they're watching this. And they're waiting and waiting. And only after a period of time when they saw that this angel did not reappear, the Pusuk tells us, Az Yuda Manoach, only then did Manoach realize Ki Malach Hashem, that this is a Malach Hashem. Meaning that up until that point he thought he was dealing with a prophet, with a Nuvi. But only when he saw that this one wasn't coming back, he came to the realization that this was none other than an angel. Now, it's a bit quizzical because if I would be standing there, as soon as I see the person jumping into the fire and disappearing, I would have come to the conclusion that this is an angel. It's superhuman. But he's waiting. He's waiting for something. He's not convinced. And only after he sees something that the person doesn't reappear, that convinces him. How do we understand that? So one of the commentaries says something beautiful. He says, in the days of Manoach and his wife, there were many people who were able to perform such miraculous stunts. There were people who were associated with higher levels of spirituality. There were some people who were associated with black magic, sorcery, kishuf. Jumping into the fire was not something that was able to convince somebody that this is a malach. However, human nature dictates that if somebody does a favor for another one, he will wait around to get some source of recognition, reimbursement, a thank you. If this person, this angelic figure, was able to light up the lives of this couple, and he disappears without a trace, now waiting for a thank you, that must be an angel. Because angels don't leave footprints. An angel understands that he's not part of the equation. He's sent by Hashem to do something, he does what he has to do, and he disappears. That is what an angel is. The same thing, this is what Chazal are referring to. They're basically saying, you found that perfect rabbi, he's talented, he's knowledgeable, but is he willing to give the shirt off his back for another Yid and be out of the equation? Nothing in return? You can go learn from him. That's a Rav Doim Malach Hashem. But if he considers himself part of the equation, he hangs around, he wants to be able to benefit, or at least see how his work paid off, it's not a rabbi for you. My friend, you have met a perfect rabbi. My grandfather was somebody who lived his life for others. He was a person who lit the torches for so many families, torches that are to be carried on from generation to generation. He shone a light into so many hundreds of thousands of people, yet that didn't mean anything to him. He got nothing in return. He never expected a thank you. When you spoke to him, it was beyond. We had a family friend, and let me finish off with this, who lived in Pittsburgh and moved to Bnei Brak. And in 1995, when I was a bucher, it was the first time my grandparents, Alei Mashulam, brought me to Eretz Yisrael. He came to visit. And he tells me then, I presented your grandfather with a very lucrative proposition. I said, why don't you go into private practice? You can make it big. You're a popular physician, you're a smart person, so many people have to come on to you. You'll just go into private practice. It's enough with being a salaried worker. To which he said, I can't do that because if a person is coming to me, the person obviously has a burden and I'm not looking to add anything to that. So this guy says, I have a deal for you. You do what you're good at and you'll be the doctor. Hire me as a CFO, Chief Financial Officer, and we'll split. He says, your grandfather looked me in the eye and he said, if you can do such a thing, I don't want to know you. He was a person who had a heart for Klal Yisrael. He was a person who truly loved everybody. He was a true Rav Adoim Malach Hashem Tzavulkas. It is really appropriate that a learning center was set up in his memory, that people should be able to learn from him, to seek to emulate him, to incorporate into their lives who he was, what he stood for, to become a better people. We have the honor, as we heard before, to have with us my uncle, Rav Michel Shlita, who, although the span in age was pretty significant, but they were extremely close. I remember every time that I was in Eretz Yisrael, there were phone calls, there were emails, how are you feeling, complaining to each other. The respect between each other was something beyond. They admired each other like, I wish many brothers would admire each other like that. And it's so befitting for us to have the schiyat to hear a couple of words from my uncle Rav Michel tonight.